The keyboard you type on, the telephone in your pocket, and the mass-produced steel holding up your city all trace their modern origins back to a single summer in history. In 1876, the United States reached its 100th birthday, but the national mood was bleak. Only a decade after the end of the Civil War, the country remained deeply fractured and traumatized by internal conflict. This line chart shows the severity of the Long Depression, which followed the Panic of 1873. You can see the sharp drop in stability that led to 18,000 business bankruptcies across the country in just 6 years. Most foreign nations viewed the United States as a failing, second-rate upstart, rather than a potential power. Entering its second century, America was not preparing for a global stage. It was simply trying to survive the decade. The proposed solution to this crisis was a massive gamble, hosting an unprecedented World's Fair in Philadelphia to prove the nation was still open for business. But the project nearly collapsed before it began. The Centennial Board of Finance failed to meet its fundraising goals and found itself completely broke. The fair was only saved at the 11th hour when the federal government reluctantly issued a $1.5 million bailout loan to keep construction moving. With 37 nations arriving to observe the results, an underfunded failure on the global stage would have signaled a total economic collapse. The construction was a massive logistical feat. Builders fenced off 236 acres of Fairmount Park to erect over 200 distinct structures in just a few years. They utilized prefabricated iron and glass components to build at record speeds. The main exhibition building alone enclosed 21.5 acres, making it the largest structure in the world at the time. Memorial Hall was the permanent centerpiece. It was designed in the Beaux Arts style, a classical architectural approach characterized by order, symmetry, and heavy ornamentation. Getting people to the park was just as difficult as building the halls. Engineers built a massive railroad artery system to handle the load. As shown here, rail lines from across the Midwest and East Coast converged into a single hub in Philadelphia, routing thousands of passengers per hour directly to the fair's gates. This temporary fairground wasn't just an exhibition, it was a functioning prototype of a modern, mass transit-connected city. Inside the halls, the density was overwhelming, with domestic Inventions sharing space with the latest exports from Europe and Asia. The center of the fair was the 1,400-horsepower Corliss steam engine, which President Ulysses S. Grant ceremonially started on opening day. This single engine drove 5 miles of overhead line belts, which provided the mechanical power for every other machine displayed in the hall. The fair also saw the first public demonstration of Alexander Graham Bell's telephone. Nearby, the Remington typewriter debuted, an early model with floral decals and a cylindrical roller that would soon change how businesses handled news and records. Bankrupt businessman H.J. Heinz walked through these halls and filled a notebook with designs for canning machinery and advertising concepts, which he later used to relaunch his company. By the time the fair closed, the foundational technologies for 20th century commerce and communication had transitioned from experimental concepts to viable industrial products. The turnout was staggering. 10 million people attended, which represented roughly 20% of the entire United States population at the time. When November arrived, this massive iron and glass city was abruptly dismantled, leaving almost no physical trace behind in the park. But visiting business owners walked away with the American system. This was a concept based on interchangeable parts and mechanized manufacturing that allowed for rapid mass production. While the buildings were gone, the intellectual framework for the modern assembly line had been permanently implanted into the American economy. The macroeconomic impact was immediate. Following the fair, American exports abruptly surged past imports, reversing the nation's trade balance for the first time in years. This chart shows the resulting explosion in domestic innovation. In just 4 years after the fair, Americans filed 10,000 new patents for various mechanical devices. Industry shifted to the Bessemer process, air blown through molten iron removed impurities, enabling the mass production of high-quality steel. Entrepreneurs like Andrew Carnegie took this exact process from the exhibition floor to build the modern American skyline. The 1876 Exposition turned Philadelphia into the primary point of exchange, where the United States shed its status as a bankrupt upstart and established the industrial infrastructure that defined its next century.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. It really helps us.